The town of Hollow Creek sleeps in amber light, dust trailing like old memories behind every horse cart. White picket fences guard red clay homes, and a hush falls over porches when a black man walks by, especially one like Elijah Ward. Elijah lives at the edge of town, beyond the church bell's reach, past the fields where white children play, without looking his way. His house stands quiet, 2 stories of creaking wood, a wraparound porch, and the fading scent of lavender from a wife long buried. Folks still whisper about her. How Rachel died slow from fever, and how Elijah hasn't been the same since. How he talks more to his horses than to people. How grief made him quiet, made him strange. But Elijah's peace is real. Out here, with no eyes watching, no tongues wagging, he can breathe. He rises before dawn, works the land with calloused hands, and tends to his barn like it's sacred. His neighbors keep their distance, some from pity, some from spite. He doesn't mind, until the girl arrives. She shows up the way storm clouds roll in, slow, silent, and with something boiling underneath. Her white dress is torn, veil half hanging off, like the wedding ran from her rather than the other way around. Elijah finds her on the road near his gate, barefoot and shivering, whispering a name he doesn't recognize. He doesn't ask questions, just brings her water, lays out a quilt, and tells her she's safe for the night. The next morning, she calls herself Clara. She's pale as porcelain, with wide blue eyes that don't quite meet his. Says she was left behind. Says she has nowhere else to go. Elijah listens without a word. The silence between them feels heavy, like a warning no one says out loud. The town don't take kindly to mixing. He knows it. She surely does too. But no one's come looking for her, and she hasn't asked to leave. By day, Clara sweeps the porch and hums hymns that sound too sweet for the sadness in her eyes. By night, she walks the field alone, staring up at the sky like she's reading it for answers. Elijah watches from the barn window. He can't explain why, but something about her don't sit right. Too quiet. Too still. One evening, she asks about the barn. Built it with my own hands, Elijah says. Took years. Rachel planted wildflowers along the fence. Clara nods, eyes lingering too long. It's beautiful, she whispers. Then she smiles. But that smile doesn't reach her eyes. The wind shifts. The air turns colder, though it's spring. And Elijah, standing in the dirt with the sun dipping behind his barn, feels something stir in his chest. A warning. He doesn't know why. But something's coming. And it ain't peace be why the third morning, the eggs Elijah sets on the table go untouched. Clara's pale fingers tremble as she clutches her coffee cup, though the sun is warm through the kitchen windows. She says she didn't sleep. Keeps glancing toward the barn like something in there's calling her name or whispering her doom. Elijah nods slow, careful not to pry. Grief has many shapes. He's worn them all. But this ain't grief. This feels more like rot blooming beneath fresh paint. She startles at small noises now. Shadows spook her. One night, he finds her curled up near the woodpile, muttering to herself. Elijah, she asks, voice so low he has to lean in, do people around here believe in ghosts? He studies her, the lantern flickering across her face. Ghosts. Sometimes I feel like something followed me. Something angry. You sure it ain't just a guilty conscience? She flinches. The words hang heavy in the air, then vanish like breath in cold wind. That same week, Sheriff Reddick comes by. Reddick's the kind of man who grinds his heel into things just to hear them crunch. White Stetson, polished boots, and a gold watch that glints too long in the sun. He leans on Elijah's gate like he owns the place, chewing tobacco and eyeing the house behind Elijah's shoulder. Got reports of a young lady gone missing after a wedding down in Mason's Ridge, Reddick says, spitting brown into the dirt. Bride never made it to the altar. Groom's family's powerful. Real upset. Think maybe she wandered this way. Elijah doesn't flinch. Ain't seen nobody. Reddick smirks. That's so. There's silence. The kind that isn't empty, it's heavy. A silent accusation hung like noose rope. You know, Ward, Reddick continues, tone low and knowing. Folks don't always understand your charity. A man like you taking in a woman like that could get folks stirred up. Misunderstandings happen. Elijah's jaw tightens. You here to ask questions, Sheriff, or make threats? Reddick tips his hat, slow and theatrical. Just neighborly concern. That's all. But as he turns to leave, his hand drags along the gate post, marking his presence like a dog staking claim. That night, Elijah locks the barn for the first time in years. He doesn't sleep. The house creaks louder. Clara's footsteps pace the upstairs floor until well past midnight. When silence finally comes, it doesn't bring rest. It brings dread. By morning, the wildflowers Rachel once planted lie trampled. Elijah bends to touch the broken stems and finds a burnt match buried in the soil. The barn door still stands. But for how long? He watches the horizon. No wind. No smoke. Still, the air smells wrong. Like something waiting to burn. Elijah doesn't confront Clara right away. He watches her drift through the house like smoke, silent, elusive, staining everything she touches with a kind of sorrow that doesn't feel her own. Her eyes are hollow when she speaks, but her voice is rehearsed, too measured. Then, one night, she leaves the lantern burning in the barn. He finds it hanging just above the hayloft, flame flickering inches from dry kindling. One breeze, one careless gust, and the whole structure would have gone up. Elijah, she says when he storms in, holding the still warm lantern, I must have forgotten. I'm so sorry. But her hands aren't shaking this time. She doesn't blink. You trying to get us killed, he growls. She flinches just enough. Then her eyes well with tears, and she reaches for his hand. I'm not well, Elijah. I didn't mean it. He doesn't take her hand. Not anymore. The next morning, the town whispers louder. At the general store, eyes linger too long. Conversations stop mid-sentence when Elijah walks in. Mrs. Tolliver, who used to give him free pie slices for Rachel's birthday, now refuses to meet his gaze. A quiet murmur spreads. That he's taken a white woman into his home. That he's corrupted her. That it's not right, not decent. But it's Reddick who makes the most noise. Folks say she's in danger. The sheriff tells him, standing too close on Elijah's own porch. Says you've been keeping her against her will. Won't let her leave. She's free to walk out any time, Elijah says. Ain't no one holding her back. That's not how she tells it, Reddick says, pulling a slip of paper from his coat. Wrote this down for me herself. Says she's scared. Says you're unstable. Violent. Elijah stares at the words, written in careful loops. Clara's handwriting. His gut churns. It's a lie. But it's written in ink, and Reddick's already pinned it to the board at the jailhouse. Elijah knows how this plays out. In a town like this, the word of a white woman outweighs the truth of a black man, even one like him. Decorated veteran. Landowner. God-fearing. None of it matters. So he turns to Pastor Josiah, the only man in town with a spine steady enough to stand by him. I need proof, Elijah says, before they come with ropes or fire. Josiah nods grimly. You'll have it. That night, Josiah hides in the loft of the barn, his old camera loaded with fresh film. Elijah leaves the doors wide open. And just past midnight, Clara enters with a bucket of kerosene and the same smile she wore at supper. She hums a soft tune. Something sweet. Something sick. She pours in silence, the liquid splashing at her feet. When she strikes the match, Josiah's flashbulb goes off. She screams. Elijah steps forward. You wanted fire, Clara? You'll get light instead. By dawn, Josiah develops the photos. Clear as day, Clara, mid-motion, her face twisted with something dark and determined. Elijah sends copies to the mayor, to the marshal in Cross Ridge, to anyone who still dares call truth sacred. But Reddick isn't done yet. He storms into town square, waving Clara's note like a badge. This man's dangerous, he bellows. She's just a girl. No, says Josiah, lifting the photo high above the crowd. She's a liar. The image speaks louder than the sheriff's mouth ever could. And now, folks are looking at Reddick with different eyes. Not just suspicion,
But shame.
because the barn didn't burn. But the lie just might. The sun blazes over Millstone's town square as the church bell clangs noon. Elijah stands in the middle of the dusty crossroads, sweat beading under his collar. Behind him, Pastor Josiah grips the photographs like scripture. A quiet crowd gathers, some with curiosity, others with judgment heavy in their eyes. And there, sauntering down the steps of the sheriff's office like he owns every brick beneath him, comes Sheriff Reddick. His silver badge catches the light. His face gleams with something close to triumph. Beside him walks Clara. No veil this time. Just that same wide-eyed, wounded expression. A porcelain victim in white. Elijah Booker, Reddick announces, voice booming, "You're under arrest for unlawful detainment, attempted assault, and threatening a woman under your care." Gasps ripple. Elijah doesn't move. His jaw tightens, but he keeps his voice even. "You done already tried this, Reddick. And I gave you reason to reconsider." The sheriff's smirk deepens. That grainy photograph? Don't mean much to the county judge. Especially when your witness is a colored preacher with a reputation for stirring trouble. Josiah steps forward, but Elijah holds up a hand. Reddick circles him now, like a wolf sizing up its prey. "You brought shame on this town. On her family. Thought you could play savior to some broken white girl and not pay the price." He turns to the crowd. "Y'all really gonna let this man stay here? You know what happens when people like him get too bold." Elijah's eyes flash, but his voice remains quiet. "People like me?" Reddick doesn't flinch. "You think because you built yourself a little life here, folks forget where you came from? You're still just." "Careful," Elijah says. The word is low, but it silences the sheriff like a slap. Then Elijah reaches into his coat, pulls out a small tape recorder, presses play. At first, there's only static. Then Clara's voice, soft and clear. "He trusts me now. One more night, and I'll make it look like he snapped. They'll believe it. I'll be free. And he'll burn." The crowd freezes. Reddick turns crimson. That could be anyone. Josiah raises his voice. "Clara gave up more than just her lies that night. She gave us her voice. And I've sent that tape to the district judge. To the newspaper in Nashville. Folks higher than you, Sheriff." Clara stares at the recorder like it might bite her. You can't do this," she stammers. "He's manipulating everything." "You poured the kerosene," Elijah says calmly. "You lit the match." He steps forward, unafraid now. "And you, Reddick, you let her. You used her lies to push me out, to keep this town yours." The sheriff glares at the crowd, looking for support. But the silence is thicker now. Even Mrs. Tolliver drops her gaze. "You think you've won," Reddick spits. Elijah meets his eyes, steady. "I don't need to win. I just need the truth to outlast you." And as two deputies quietly step up beside the sheriff, neither touching him, but close enough to signal change, Reddick realizes the shift. He's losing control, losing the story. And this time, no badge will cover it up. Sheriff Reddick's mouth opens, then shuts. The recorder's static fades, but its echo hangs thick in the air like smoke after gunfire. Then, a voice cuts through the silence. "I got more," says a wiry young man from the back of the crowd. Caleb, the quiet teenager who bags groceries at Henderson's store, steps forward, clutching an old cell phone. "She didn't know I was in the barn the night she poured that gas. I caught it on video. Whole thing." He raises the phone, the screen flickering with the unmistakable image of Clara, wild-eyed, dousing the barn floor. Her voice crackles through the tinny speaker. "They'll say he went mad. They always do when it's them." Gasps. A few people step back from Clara. Her hands tremble now, fingers twitching like they're still gripping a match. "No, that he edited that," she stammers. "He's just some what?" Caleb shoots back, voice strong. "Some kid? Some boy too dumb to matter?" Pastor Josiah walks forward, placing a gentle hand on Caleb's shoulder, then turns to the crowd. How many more truths do we need before we see what's been hiding plain? Reddick reaches for his belt. Instinct. Reflex. But the deputies move first. Easy, Sheriff. One of them warns. You think this makes you clean? Reddick growls. You think these folks'll take his word over mine? Over hers? Then, a slow voice speaks from behind the crowd. I reckon they'll take mine. Heads turn. Reverend Alice Givens, the oldest living soul in Millstone. Black. Fierce. Widowed twice and feared by both racists and cowards. She leans on her cane as she steps through the parted sea of townsfolk. I heard Clara Bragdon in the alley behind the parish 2 nights ago. Said she had the sheriff in her pocket and a fire in her hands. Said she'd fix her reputation, even if that colored man burned with it. Even the birds stopped singing. Clara looks like she might collapse. That woman's senile. She's lying. Reverend Givens lifts her chin. I may forget where I leave my tea, child, but I don't forget poison when I hear it. The judge, yes, the county judge, steps out of a parked sedan, drawn by the noise. He scans the crowd, looks at the phone, hears the audio. Then his gaze settles on Reddick. This town's been in your hands too long, Sheriff. And it's rotted from the roots. Elijah doesn't move, doesn't gloat. He just breathes, for the first time in days really breathes. Reddick lunges, snarling. This is a setup. You think you can take everything I built with your stories and pity. 2 deputies wrestle him down. The badge clatters to the dirt. Clara tries to flee, but Reverend Givens sticks out her cane and trips her flat. Dust rises. Cheers don't. Just silence. Heavy. Honest. Finally, Elijah steps forward. I don't want revenge. I just wanted to be left in peace. The judge nods. You'll have it now. And more. As the sheriff and Clara are led away, faces red, eyes darting for lifelines that no longer exist, Elijah looks out at Millstone. And Millstone looks back. Some ashamed, some stunned, but most change. It takes less than 48 hours for Millstone to shed its skin. Reddick is booked into county jail, no backdoor deal, no favor pulled. The footage goes viral. Local news swarms in, sniffing scandal. A sheriff conspiring with a racist arsonist? Small-town America eats it up. The badge he wore for 22 years now glints from inside an evidence locker. Clara's family tries to spin the story. Fragile girl manipulated by grief, emotional instability, trauma. But the receipts don't lie. The matches. The messages. Her voice on video. Her shrill, desperate denial. She's charged with arson, attempted murder, and false reporting. Her face is plastered across headlines. The bridal company that once boasted her picture on their website yanks it down within the hour. The world turns fast when masks fall. But in Elijah's world, things move slower. He rebuilds the barn himself. With his hands. With wood from the felled trees behind the ridge, and help from those who once only nodded from a distance. They show up quiet, sheepish. With toolboxes and casseroles. Pastor Josiah. Caleb and his mother. Even Henderson, the grocery store owner, who never said a racial slur but never stopped one either. I didn't know how bad it was, he murmurs, driving a nail into a beam. Elijah doesn't answer. Doesn't need to. Some things are better understood in silence. They repaint the fence white. Fix the gate that had always leaned a little crooked. Every hammer strike feels like a memory being rebuilt stronger. Reverend Givens visits one morning with sweet tea and a tin of cornbread. You earned this peace, boy, she says, eyes soft but steady. Don't ever let em shame you into hiding again. He nods. I won't. Later, a group of high schoolers ask if they can film a video on his land. We're doing a project on justice. And healing. You're kinda all of that. Elijah chuckles, a rare sound, and waves them toward the hill where the sun hits just right. One evening, as the sky bleeds orange and lavender, Elijah walks to the edge of his porch and sees her. Neha, the rejected bride, now free of the veil and the guilt that once choked her. She stands by the new barn, hands in her pockets, wind catching her scarf. She doesn't approach. just raises a hand in quiet gratitude. He nods. They've both survived fire. And come out clean. The town holds a potluck in the churchyard weeks later. There's music, laughter. The first real blending of skin tones millstones seen in a long while. It's awkward at times. Old wounds don't vanish overnight. But there's effort now. Awareness. Josiah raises a toast. To truth, he says, lifting his glass. And to those who carry it, even when it burns. Elijah stands near the edge, watching the kids play tag under the moonlight. Watching a town begin to shift. Maybe not into something perfect, but into something better. And when the music fades and folks start heading home, Elijah lingers by the gate. Alone but not lonely. Safe. Respected. Whole. The barn behind him stands tall. The fire that nearly took everything now just a shadow, cast behind him. He takes a breath. Lets it go. Justice had come. And this time, it stay.